Okay, well, welcome to my final response for CHXL 157 or whatever the class was called. I don't know, never paid attention. But Latinx Studies, and this is my final response in video form. So the first part was about colonization, colonialism, and imperialism, and all of its in influences. So basically, like when the American people came over, they took over what was Mexico at the time, and they kicked all their people out and took all their land. And due to this, well, the Mexican people weren't exactly the happiest, but colonizers came over, they kicked the people out of their home, ripped it from them, and took it as their own, which only got worse during the gold rush. They did this for many reasons, one of which was this section of Manifest Destiny, the belief that this land was theirs, given to them by God, and God gave them the right to do whatever the fuck they wanted with the land. So they did. They kicked people out by threatening them, just straight up murder, or whatever means they could to get people off. But they had a belief that this was them by God. This is their God-given right to do this, which wasn't exactly true. Which I believe the Pope recently came out and said, yeah, that's not exactly what we said, but okay. But colonialism has had a massive impact. It's something that the Latin community feels to this very day in many parts of the world. Take Puerto Rico, for example. It's a Latin community, but ever since the U.S. took over it, they are 100% reliant on. Nothing gets into the country without it going through U.S. ships and U.S. seeing what's on it and everything. They are 100% reliant, which causes their economy to be even worse than ours. So there's that. Puerto Rico is 100% reliant, and since we have control over it, we used to make it to where the Puerto Ricans couldn't have children, even if they wanted to. Sometimes through force, sometimes through not even telling the women and just letting them get a surgery about it. But it was all way too late when everyone found out all that deal. But we took over and we just kind of abused them. Since we colonize them, we have the right to do whatever the fuck we want with them. And one last section is the term Latinx. Latinx as a whole community. It's kind of a result of colonization, since the people took what we did to them and are using it to empower themselves, gain together, just become a unit and unite everyone in one section with them with them wanting to unite against everything and get better rights for them. In basics, Latinx and all of the community is a result of colonialism, since we do still feel impacted by it in the Latin community to this very day. Well, personally, I don't feel it, as I am not one of the Latin community. I can see it on occasion, but something I personally do not experience. So there is that. But it will be there forever. It's felt to this day and undeniably be felt for God knows how long. Okay, as for the second section, we have nativism, racism, and all that entails for the Latin community. The Latin community still faces racism and nativist views all across the country. No matter where they go, they're gonna find it, whether they want it or not. And this stuff leads back for years, ever since that they were allowed to work. We have the Bracero program, which basically took Latin community members made them to work for hella cheap, and yeah, they were pretty much legal slaves at that point. Outside of they could quit if they wanted to, but yeah, they didn't exactly have many choices. So there was that, but there was way fucking more. Yeah, around the same exact time when they were kicking people out, yeah, deportation as like a threat if they didn't do stuff or if they weren't legal or something, they would just straight deport them using that as a threat. Just did happen many, many times, unwillingly, willingly, and people who had just had no clue what was going on and were just super confused. So that's sad. And there's also laws that were being created to go against them. Like, multiple laws were created pretty much just so that police could have an excuse to arrest and deport the land community. Again, hella native, hella racist and all this, but the history, what can you do? The community still faces some stuff like this today, but definitely not to the same extent as their ancestors did, which won't change, and they can't change their history. So, and another thing is Prop 227. This was a thing for in schools where you were not allowed to speak Spanish in the classroom at all. They were forced to stay there and speaking and learn English, whether they wanted to or not, which is, I don't think I need to explain why that's native sense. Yeah, if you're not allowed to speak your own native language in schools no matter what, yeah, not exactly the nicest thing. But again, like, there's the other stuff I mentioned, the deportation. Yeah, that was native just simply because half the time it wasn't really needed or anything. It's just go back to your country just because. Get the fuck out of ours. And the same thing with the laws. Just, we're gonna make shit up so you can go to jail, and we don't want to see you, so have fun in prison. Do your thing in there. We don't care. And the Bracero program was, well, the Bracero program pretty much just, again, the legal way to get them to work for hella cheap at hella reduced costs and labor, just making it easier on us, but just treating the land community like absolute dogs and dog shit. The country since the beginning has been a nativist and racist type place. It has 100% clearly been able to see that it's gotten better over the years, but it still happens on occasion, but it has improved and hopefully will only improve as the years go by. And finally, for our last, topic-related section, we have the 1960s and all these student revolts and the educational side of things. For this, students have been a part of marches and protests for many years, as we are one of the more powerful people, as we are the younger ones, and people recognize that we are going to be the future. So students have been revolting against racism and everything against them for years. We have multiple examples. Take the Mendez family versus the Westminster School District, for example. This is like one of if not the most famous examples, as it is a small family suing a large school district in California for being hella racist and nativist, as that school district had all the bells and whistles, like extra grades for Latin people, separate classes for them, all the bells and whistles, hella racist people, everything. And thankfully, at the end of the lawsuit, the Mendez family did end up winning this lawsuit, and in result made California like the first state to ban racism in schools and all this, which leads into many more examples that we can possibly get into, and just leads to further stuff. Like this was like the kindling to the fire. Like another example is the El Plan de Santa Barbara stuff, like with people pushing back for and wanting higher education for them, which they did, since they pushed back, protested and everything, and got it to where like Latin community can go to school, get college degrees, and make something of their lives. There is also like the massive school walkouts that everyone knows about, with many people in the Latin community dissatisfied with their lack of representation in schools, with teachers, classes on their history, and everything. So they gathered, they organized to walk out at one specific day at one specific time across a bunch of different campuses, and they did, which showed the staff there that they wanted this, so they ended up getting it. Which could also lead into all the mega marches that happened before, with like, say, different laws against Latin communities also affecting students. There was a lot of students at each mega march, which definitely helped to boost the reputation of things and boost everything around it, since these mega marches would obviously affect students as well. And thankfully, they got their way in the end, and students are freely allowed to do as they please, no matter what community they are. And the Latin community is now has their own classes in some schools, and the teachers just like them. I believe LA just gave themselves like a whole degree or something like that around it recently. So it shows that there is still some work to be done, but it is a bright future on the horizon for them. So as for the class reflection, well, honestly, I actually kind of enjoyed the class. While I went into it not really caring for any of the source material, or, well, any of the material in general, as I'm purely taking this for the diversity point, I actually ended up enjoying the class. Still don't fully care about the content involved, but hey, cared about the class enough to do everything and get a good grade on it, so there's that. But yeah, overall, I'd recommend it. It was fun to do. I actually liked how the teacher had an agenda for each day. That definitely helped out for preparing me for said day. And how all the readings were already posted in the syllabus. I could just easily go down, find the right week, and just upload it like that. That made it super fucking simple. But yeah, it was easy. It was helpful, easy. I actually learned shit. Something that's kind of hard to do. But I actually learned from the class due to how it was set up and how it was done. Due to having Tuesdays be lecture days and Thursdays, we use that in an activity, meaning we actually have to know stuff to work on the activity. That was definitely helping me remember. But it was very helpful, so thank you. But yeah, the class as a whole, I think it was perfectly fine. Which all classes were like that, but life fucking sucks. You can't have that, so. But thank you for the year.